Start in a standing position at the top of your mat. And if you need to do some side stretching, kind of warm up your body just a little bit. This session is going to have a lot of spinal twisting and balancing. Go ahead and raise the arms overhead. Take a deep breath in and release. And swan dive down to forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold. Rise up, arms overhead, and swan dive down. Just doing a little warm up here. Plant the palms and hopper step back into high plank, half lower into up dog, pushing back into down dog. We're going to do a few of these to warm up a little bit. Maybe paddle those feet out, walk that dog just a little bit. Deeply bend the knees, hopper step forward to forward fold and halfway lift. Forward fold, rise up, arms overhead, and swan dive down. Plant the palms and hopper step back to high plank, half lower into up dog, and pushing back into down dog. You can kind of get into a rhythmic flow with these warm-up movements. Deeply bend the knees, hopper step forward to forward fold and halfway lift. Forward fold, rise up, arms overhead, swan dive down to forward fold. Plant the palms, hopper step back into high plank, half lower into up dog, and push back into down dog. Deeply bend the knees and hopper step forward to forward fold and rise up, arms overhead. We're going to start first with a little bit of a chair pose. So arms up overhead, bend those knees into chair pose, tuck the tailbone, keep the arms outstretched. Again, with any balance, keep your eye on one object to find that balance. If you want, you can twist to your left, pushing your right elbow on your left leg, pushing your palms together, opening up your chest, and rise up again to chair pose again. Tuck the tailbone under, keeping everything tight, and twist to the right. And rise up back to chair pose, centered for just a few more breaths here. And rise up, arms overhead, swan dive down to forward fold. Paddle those feet out. We're then going to do a forward fold, side stretch. Plant the left palm, bend the left knee, and open up to the right, raising that right arm overhead. This feels really good on the hips. It's a great stretch. Again, giving yourself time to breathe in and out of these movements. Go ahead, come back to center in that forward fold. Give your toes a little break, and then plant the right palm, bend the right knee, and open up to the left. And come back to center in that forward fold. Slowly rise up to standing. Raise those arms up. Maybe put those feet hip width apart and spread the arms and take in a few deep breaths here in this really wonderful, strong pose. The next pose is going to be dancer pose, which requires quite a bit of balance. So modify this any way you need to. Go ahead and bend the right leg back behind you. Use your toe as a little kickstand. If you can, when you're ready, go ahead and grab the right foot with your right arm and reach forward into dancer pose. If you can't quite get there, that's okay. Just try standing there, holding one leg elevated, and work on your balance. Again, key to balance is finding one spot to look at, using your toes, spreading your toes out, using your whole foot to support yourself. And go ahead and drop down Release. Maybe do a side stretch here and there. Shake it out a little bit. Go ahead, kick the left leg back behind you. Use your foot as a kickstand. Reach that left hand behind you and press out into dancer pose. This is a harder side for me. My right leg is not as strong and I don't have as much balance, so I don't feel as confident in this pose. But again, if you want to just stand there and elevate your foot and just hold your foot behind you, and that is building balance for yourself if you can't quite get yourself out to this stretched out dancer pose. But again, just find one spot and take a look at it. Go ahead and release. Shake it out just a little bit. Maybe do some torso twists. Rise up, arms overhead, and swan dive down to forward fold. Halfway lift. Plant the palms and hopper step back into high plank. Half lower into up dog. Make sure to keep those elbows in that up dog. Pushing back into down dog. Deeply bend the knees, hopper step forward into forward fold and halfway lift. Forward fold, rise up, arms overhead. Remember this rhythmic breathing that you'll get into with these flows. Forward fold, plant the palms and hopper step back into high plank, half lower into up dog. Pushing back into down dog. And deeply bend the knees, hopper step forward into forward fold and halfway lift. Forward fold, and then rise up, arms overhead, taking in swooping breaths, and slowly swan dive down into forward fold. Plant the palms and hopper step back into high plank, half lower into up dog, and slowly push back into down dog. Pick the right leg back behind you and swoop it forward in between your two hands into a low runner's lunge. You're going to rise up, arms overhead into high crescent lunge. Again, this is going to be another balancing move, so you're going to kind of get a little bouncy and rush forward, rush that left knee forward into a standing single leg pose. And back to high crescent lunge. We're going to do a few of these. And again, left knee forward. And back to high crescent lunge, and pop up again, left knee forward. If you can do this all on one leg, more power to you. Back to high crescent lunge, and one more time, draw that left knee up, and back to high crescent lunge. Plant the palms and kick back into down dog. Kick the left leg back behind you and swoop it forward, plant that foot in between the two palms into a low runner's lunge and rise up into high crescent lunge. Same thing on this side. Once you get your balance, rise up and draw that knee up in front of you to a standing single-legged pose. I'm stronger on this side. I can hold my weight in a single-leg pose on my left leg a lot better. But again, just rising up slowly, drawing that right knee up to a single leg standing position and back into high crescent lunge. And back down to high crescent lunge. Plant the palms. Kick that leg back into down dog. And slowly caterpillar forward into high plank. Kick the left knee to the outside of the right elbow. And kick the leg back behind you. Again, left knee to the outside of the right elbow. Again, left knee to the right elbow. This is a little bit more of a twist in this knee to elbow position. Back to down dog. And caterpillar to high plank. And kick the right knee to the left elbow. Kick the leg back behind you again, right knee to the left elbow. And one more time, right knee to the left elbow. Drop that right leg and open up into this wonderful open starfish pose. Taking a few breaths here. And then push back into down dog. Drop the right leg, kick the left leg back behind you, and pull that left leg forward, reaching out again into star pose. And plant the palms, kick back into down dog. One more time on the other side. Kick the right leg back behind you and reach it through so you can open up in this nice star pose. Plant the palms, kick back into down dog. Drop the right leg and kick the left leg back behind you, coming through. One more time on this side for this wonderful pose. Plant the palms, kick back into down dog. Kick the right leg back behind you, bend the knee and stack the hips. I love this stretch for my hips, it feels awesome. Drop the right leg, kick the left leg back behind you, bend the knee and stack the hips. Key is to keep your shoulders square while stacking your hips one on top of the other. And back to down dog, deeply bend the knees and hopper step forward into forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold. Rise up, arms overhead, taking in a deep breath and releasing all that air. And swan dive down to forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold. Plant the palms and hopper step back into high plank, elbows in, half lower into up dog. Curl the toes, pushing back into down dog. Again, deeply bend the knees. You know this flow. Keep this rhythmic motion going into a half lift. Back to a forward fold, rise up, arms overhead. And swan dive down to forward fold and plant the palms and hopper step back into high plank, pushing down into up dog and then slowly pushing back into down dog. One more time with this flow, deeply bend the knees, hopper step forward, halfway lift to your forward fold, rise up, arms overhead, and swan dive down to forward fold, plant the palms and hopper step back into high plank, half lower into up dog. Curl the toes, push back into down dog. Deeply bend the knees, hopper step forward into forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold. Rise up, arms overhead. Big breath in, arms wide, and slowly release all that air and release the arms down to your side. Come to the center of your mat in a wide leg stance. Maybe do some side bends here. Reach down one side to the other. Finding some movement if you want to stretch your arms out and do some torso twists as well. That feels pretty good. Twisting left and right slowly with a nice spinal stretch. Come back to center. Hands together and start bending one knee and then the other, keeping both heels on the ground, slowly shifting weight from one side to the other. This is going to be tricky here. We're going to be doing side lunges and then pushing up into a single leg standing pose. I'm going to leave all of my kind of messier attempts because the more I did this, the more fluid it became and the easier it became. So when you're ready, maybe take a deep breath in. You're going to use some momentum and rise up onto one leg, raising the other leg up in front of you and back down into that side lunge. Shift to the other leg and whoosh, rising right up into that single leg pose. Just keep watching, just keep with the flow, seeing how you can do. It's going to take a little bit to find that balance. Find that spot that you're looking at, but keep lunging from left to right and rising up on one leg, drawing that knee up. If you want to work on just one side at a time, you can do that. I like to shift weight back and forth. And eventually I kind of find a rhythm in these side lunges to single standing leg. It's almost like a crane with the knee out front, standing on one leg, arms outstretched. Maybe one more time for the side lunge to single leg standing position. And maybe one more time on the other side. Hopefully at this point you found a little flow here. Come back to center in your wide leg stance. And drop the palms into a wide leg forward fold. And pivot into a runner's lunge and push into high plank. We're going to stay here in high plank for just a little bit. This is such a good move for strengthening. It really is a basic move that everybody should be doing pretty regularly. It develops that core strength, hip strength. It requires all of your muscles to engage. You can breathe through that. You can do anything for about a minute. Just keep breathing, pushing those palms into your mat, pushing off that mat. And you got this. Keep going. Just a little bit longer in this plank. If you need to drop your knees and take a quick break, you can do so. But if you can, stay strong for as long as you can. This is almost a minute of plank. You can do it just a little bit longer. And you'll get a nice little break afterwards with the child's pose. And again, just a little bit longer. And go ahead and drop the knees. Slowly roll back into child's pose if you want to widen your knees and put your toes together. You can make this an active child's pose and push your forearms and your hands into the mat, pushing your hips further back into your heels. Taking in breaths here in this nice relaxing pose. Go ahead and slowly come to a seated position with your knees and legs in 90-degree angles in front of you and behind you. You're going to rise up on your knees and slowly lower back down. This is a great hip strengthener. So keep just slowly rising up with the legs bent at 90-degree angles. And again, up, using that core, using all those hip muscles. And again. And then slowly lower. And go ahead and switch legs in the other direction. You always want to make sure you do both sides. And rise up on your knees. It's kind of like a kneeling glute bridge. And again, rise up on those knees, slowly lowering, engaging all the glutes and the hamstrings and the core. Rise up and slowly lower, and one more time, rise up. And slowly lower back down. Go ahead and find yourself into a forward seated position and slowly roll back on your mat. You can hug your knees into your chest. Plant the heels and draw them as close to your hips and your glutes as you can. You're going to be doing a glute bridge, so go ahead and rise up if you can. Roll the shoulders underneath, clasp the palms together. Really keep everything super tight. We're going to add a little bit of an extra juicy move here if you can. In that raised glute raise, go ahead and start pointing the toes out just to further engage all those glute muscles. Really make sure you're isolating that and that you're not cramping in your hamstrings. If you are, that means you're not engaging your glutes. But one more time, rise up as high as you can in that glute bridge. And then slowly unclasp your hands and uncurl your shoulders and roll down one vertebra at a time. Go ahead and hug your knees into your chest. And slowly roll your head down. Stretch your arms out. Maybe do a little spinal massage there. Drop your both knees to your right and look to your left. And raise your knees up in front of you. Drop your knees to your left and look to your right. I have one more little surprise. I felt like I needed to just get one more core movement in this. So go ahead and stretch out long on your mat, hands on your hips. We're going to do flutter kicks. Legs out in front of you, hovering just above your mat, and flutter kick. You can do it. Again, you can do anything. This is about 20 seconds, so you can do anything for that amount of time. Engaging the core, keeping your back on your mat, hands on your hips, and flutter kicking, hovering your legs just above the mat. And that's it. Knees to chest. A few final breaths. Stretch out long. The final moment of this session, and hands to heart. Namaste.